Welcome to the Steelers by the Lake podcast. My name is James Strong, joined once again by my co-host Cody Tanner. Cody, how are you on this fine Friday afternoon?
James, I'm doing fantastic. Excited for the Steelers game this week. It's Sunday Night Football. It's obviously our first. It is our first primetime game, and oh my Lanta, am I excited for that? With that being said, there's a lot to go over. But before that, James, how are you doing today?
Doing well, man. Doing well. Boy, they beat me up at PT, but I'm starting to reach places I haven't been able to reach in a couple of months. So
good. You can reach the top shelf now to get the cereal down.
Almost. We're getting there.
I can feel the tightness when you do that. But before we even go into Steelers roster moves and things like that, and there is a ton for this pregame show or preview show, we want to talk about the month in review, obviously. So we'll talk about states and countries. James, you want to do states or countries?
I'll take the countries.
Go for it.
So number one in downloads for us last month, which was an excellent month. Appreciate every single one of you that listened and downloaded last month. Number one was the United States of America. Big surprise there. Yeah. Number two was China. That is actually a big surprise. Don't normally have a large listenership in China, but appreciate those of you who are listening there. Number three, Canada. The loyal listenership there has been very solid this year. Number four, Australia. So our friends down under there, maybe that's even Steelers Nation Australia.
We appreciate it, mate. We appreciate it.
Check them out if you get a chance. They put a real nice show together on YouTube. And then the fifth and final top five for us was Russia. So getting some downloads in Russia this month as well.
Dang, Russia. The motherland. Okay, anyways. I don't know. I don't know. It's too early for me. Anyways.
It's 1:30. How's it too early?
I live with a DJ right now, and he's up until like 4 o'clock. Anyways, we're going to move on. Let's talk about top downloaded states right now. California is the number one state downloaded from last month. We also have Pennsylvania as number two. So California jumped ahead of Pennsylvania. Don't know how they did it. Impressed, shocked, confused, but bravo. Ohio number three, Missouri number four, and the old stomping grounds of myself for Texas number five. So those are the top five downloaded states and countries for this previous month. James, now it is time to talk a lot of freaking roster moves.
So many. Pittsburgh really fine-tuning the back end of the 53-man roster to try to accommodate some of these injuries, but also some things happened in the last few weeks that exposed some things, right? So far in this season, Darius Rush has really kind of been a disappointment. He's played some special teams. From what I've seen on special teams, he got pushed around a lot. The physicality just has not been there. They were not willing to put him out there on defense as he had a lot of mistakes last year with trying to figure out where he was supposed to be. Seems some blown assignments. We're already having a big enough issue with that. We're not going to put somebody out on the field who is definitely notorious for that. So Darius Rush was released. In addition to him, Jalen Elliott also released. That has everything to do with the signing of Terrell Edmonds a couple of weeks ago, as Terrell Edmonds, better quality safety, already seeing some action last week against the Cowboys or against the the Colts. So that's why you're seeing that. And in a related move, Pittsburgh did sign guard Max Sharping off the 53-man or to the 53-man roster off the practice squad from the Washington Commanders. He is a former second-round pick. So this is a high pedigree guy. He's got a lot of experience starting in the NFL. Been on a few teams at this point. Doesn't seem like he's been able to catch on and really find a place that he can call home. So I would say somebody that's a second-round pick who has ended up on practice squads only a few short years later. What was he? Was like a 2020 draft pick or something like
I can find out
yeah, I
while we
believe
talk
it
about
was
him.
2020 that he was a second-round draft pick. So a high pedigree guy. I'm sure this is someone that Pittsburgh had their eyes on in the process and just were unable to draft, or maybe they had him evaluated as a third or fourth round pick and he went in the second. That would also explain a few things, as the lack of success he's had in the league thus far. But as far as a backup guard, you could do a lot worse. So I think this is a really nice pickup, finding someone with a lot of experience that's high pedigree that you can use as a backup guard when that guard position is getting a little bit thin for Pittsburgh right now.
Yeah, looks like 2019 was his rookie year. So
nice
for the Houston Texans. And then his last 2 seasons were spent with Cincinnati. So unfortunate for him.
So yeah, Sharping will be on the 53 now. James Daniels officially placed on the injured reserve. If you didn't catch it, that was an Achilles tear. So unfortunately, his season is over, and that really stinks for him. It's going to stink for Pittsburgh as well. Obviously, he was a high-quality starting guard, but in addition to that, he was slated to be a free agent. Pittsburgh had already decided they weren't going to re-sign him, which means he was about to make a lot of money in free agency, and now that's not going to be the case because he's going to go into it not even healthy yet. So really stinks for James Daniels, but he's still young, so he'll have the opportunity to catch on somewhere, but he might have to take a lesser deal once the season's already started next season. So just a real bummer for him, but his season is officially over, and that is the 5th starting offensive lineman now for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it has been a very bad time for the Steelers offensive line. It has not been enjoyable whatsoever so far. And listen, I feel like every year it's another freaking position room. It's just crazy. Sometimes it's the middle linebacker room as a whole. Sometimes it's the defensive line. Sometimes it's the offensive line. Like this year, it's just been crazy. And it happens for every team. I just feel like we get, when it's one player in one room, it's all of them. And it's just
middle
crazy.
Linebacker last year, right?
Yeah.
It started early in the year, then we got devastated the week after the trade deadline.
Yep.
And that made it very, very difficult for Pittsburgh to compete at a high level as the season went on last year. So continuing down these roster transactions, the Steelers signed outside linebacker Eku Leota and running back LaMichael Pirine to the practice squad. And when they did that, they released edge defender Marcus Haynes, who was on the practice squad already, kind of bounced off and on the roster previous to that, and fullback Jack Coletto, both released from the practice squad to make room for these two gentlemen. Not surprised to see LaMichael Pirine back on the squad, as the running back room is getting a little thinner. Injuries really starting to mount up in the running back room as well. So you bring in some people with some experience, some big, thick guys. That's a real concern from this last game was Aaron Shamklin and his pass blocking ability. If they're committed to using him on third down, if you're thinking you're going to keep the running back in as a protector, you might as well have a big, thick, strong dude like LaMichael Pirine back there for it, because that dude can pick up a blitz. I guarantee you that.
Yeah. I mean, again, that was the problem we had last week with Shamklin. So,
yes,
it's a lot of what they're doing is recognize, and it's to be expected, but we're just communicating it maybe a little too much to make sure everyone who's listening understands. They're seeing problems that the team is having. They're fixing them. They're addressing them, and they're making sure that hopefully, those are no longer issues moving forward. That's the ultimate goal of figuring this stuff out early and often. And I'm happy this is happening. I'm hoping there's some coaching things happening as well, because we can't do these transitions and these things in the later half of the year. One, there you can't do any trades or anything like that. That aspect changes. Not that we're trading right now, but then two, that's when we're in the gauntlet, man. We are in the thick of the season, and really, it's like we're basically going through a full season right now, and then that second half is just killer, man.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, very, very difficult at that point in the schedule, no doubt about that. Continuing on with these roster transactions, Cody, because we're not done. We're getting close to done, but we're not done.
We're about halfway.
Outside linebacker, and he also played a little inside linebacker this preseason. Jacoby Windman has been re-signed to the practice squad. So he's got a little bit of experience of both. I thought he splashed a little bit in the preseason at inside linebacker. So interesting to see him back. Also, Aaron Shamklin got promoted from the practice squad to the 53-man roster.
Yep.
Not a surprise, as he was elevated last week with both Cordarrelle Patterson and Jalen Warren out with injuries and looking very likely to not be healthy enough to play this week. You got to have at least a second running back. And I wouldn't be surprised if a third one is elevated, whether it be Jonathan Ward or now with LaMichael P. Ryan on the roster as well. He's a possibility there too.
Yep.
Somebody coming back from injury, Cody.
Yes. It took a while, but the 21-day practice window has opened for outside linebacker Jeremiah Moon. We are very excited for that. No, I mean, let me clarify. He hasn't played a lot anyways for us to get super excited about him, but it's just the fact of having another body to put in there and to take some of the heat off and give breaks to TJ Highsmith and Herbig at this point. All those guys would benefit from Jeremiah Moon coming back. I do believe that his position on the 53 would be made available as soon as he came back. I think he's that fourth outside linebacker for sure. And then moving on. Actually, no, that's it. That's it for injuries, right?
That is it.
That's it.
We actually talk about the injuries.
That's
Roster transactions are done 10 minutes into the show.
Hey, that's fine. It could be worse. So we are going to talk real quick about Pro Football Hall of Fame inductees or potential inductees. LC Greenwood and Andy Russell advance in the seniors division or senior section category for 2025 Hall of Fame. And then we're very curious, will these guys get in before the current age guys? We got guys like Hines Ward. Oh man, there's a couple that we talked about. James Harrison.
Casey Hampton.
There's a list of them. Is James Ferrier
Anderson too?
Is James Ferrier on that?
I think Ferrier is eligible, but he only had like 2 or 3.
Yeah, he's not.
Bowls, so he's not getting in. But yeah, I think this is a really interesting question because one of the big glaring misses from the 70s season is that LC Greenwood was a very dominant player. If you look at the Steelers all-time sack leaders, he's up there, man. He's like a sack behind Mean Joe Green. So I think he's probably number 4 all-time in Steelers history when you actually include those 70s guys with the sack category, right? Just anyone that was able to watch those 70 teams, which is basically anybody a little bit older than me. If you're in your 50s or 60s, you got a chance to see that. LC Greenwood was a terror on the field, man. He actually was the guy that switched to gold-colored cleats because he wanted to make sure he was getting credit for the sacks and the tackles and everything that he had because he felt like other people were getting credit for his play. So quite a disruptive character and an instrumental part of those 70s teams that won 4 Super Bowls. Also, Andy Russell was a very valuable member of that defense also. So both these guys have a possibility. And I think, honestly, LC Greenwood is an extremely strong candidate for that senior category and might be a stronger candidate than any of these current guys are, whether it be Hines Ward or James Harrison or Casey Hampton, than those gentlemen are. So yeah. I have a feeling that we might see LC Greenwood in before we see Hines Ward or James Harrison.
Well, we very well could, but let's be real too. I think, unfortunately, there's a better chance of James Harrison getting in to Hall of Fame over Hines Ward just for the fact of that one stinking play in the Super Bowl. Like, Hines Ward won a Super Bowl MVP, but I think that play right before halftime of Super Bowl, what was it, 50? I don't remember, 53?
No, it was either 40 or 43.
40. I'm in the wrong section. I think it was 43. And that interception return for a touchdown right before halftime. I mean, that changed it changed the outlook of the game. It changed how they were going to play for the rest of the time. So I think that even looking at the stats, it makes sense to some degree for Hines Ward to get in. He was a Super Bowl MVP. He definitely has more Pro Bowls, I think, than James Harrison, or maybe he doesn't. I don't know. I don't think
so. I think Harrison has more, actually.
Really? And once I thought about that, that wouldn't surprise me. But again, this is just it's very interesting to see how this could all play out because do you favor like a game-changing play and like a all-time great NFL play over the stats that Hines Ward has, I don't know what you do in that situation, you know?
And are you favoring the defensive player of the year award that James Harrison has over the Super Bowl MVP that Hines Ward has? Both of these are extraordinary things that not many players can say. You know, it's a once in a career kind of thing that typically happens for guys. If you get it, you don't ever get it again. Is it enough for either one of these guys? Is the resume strong enough?
That's the
question.
I
think Harrison's only like 5 Pro Bowls, and I think Hines was less than that.
How many wide receivers have won Super Bowl MVP? Then you got to compare. Like, it's just, there's so many, and then it's just how many people hate the Pittsburgh Steelers, and none of them get in. So
that's partially why the 70s guys are starting to get in one by one. A few years back, we saw Donnie Shell get in.
Yep.
And that's when the gears shifted from trying to get Donnie Shell into LC Greenwood as the next guy that was really someone who should have got in, but they just stopped putting guys in from the 70s Steelers because a few people had said they thought there were too many.
Blah.
I don't think that is a thing. If he deserves to go, he deserves to go, period. It doesn't matter how many of his teammates were also elite.
100%.
You go to the Hall of Fame. That's the way it goes.
100%.
So it's the voters that should not be voters that just hate the Steelers that said, man, I can't stand the thought of putting another 70 Steelers in there. Well, you shouldn't be voting if that's the case, because all it matters is your level.
The Chiefs have been to the Super Bowl too much. I guess we got to make sure they don't go.
Yep. Yeah, I guess you can't put Travis Kelce in the Hall of Fame. I'm sick of the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Like, no, it doesn't work that way.
Or you can't send him to the Pro Bowl. There's too many. Like, it's just crazy.
It doesn't work that way. It doesn't take away from your accolades because your teammates are good.
Yeah. James, we are going to celebrate for a second. I'm going to celebrate with you here. Are you ready to celebrate?
Oh, so much.
I'm so ready. We are celebrating because, there you go, James. Mr. Chris Boswell was named AFC Special Teams Player of the Month. Not the week, the month. Cheers, sir. I got you.
Cheers.
So we're celebrating that. We're excited about that. Well deserved. Very well deserved.
This show has been on record as saying Boz for president for 5 years now. I know that is not a political statement. We just love Chris Boswell.
I mean, it could be.
And honestly, he has just put together an incredible season so far. The only kick that he's missed was a 62-yarder, and it was just barely to the right. Was long enough. So what a season Chris Boswell is putting together so far. Don't worry, I knocked on wood, not to jinx him.
Thank you. We needed that.
Doing an incredible job thus far this season, and nice to see him getting the accolades. Dallas has an excellent kicker too.
Yeah,
that dude's also tearing it up, and I think he also has a game with 6 kicks made in it this season. So we might have a real interesting battle if these teams struggle to get in the end zone. The kickers are pretty much automatic this Sunday.
Yeah. Chris Boswell is the NFL all-time most accurate kicker from 50-plus yards, which is very impressive.
Yeah, it is.
And I don't expect him to go anywhere. I'm happy he's not injured. Knock on wood. But
why would you even say that?
I don't know. Because I'm processing the fact that we lost our good punter. But anyways, we're going to transition to talk about this upcoming game. We're going to talk about the injuries that are currently listed. We don't have any updates for practice today. It is 1:44 p.m. on Friday. So we don't have anything. We'll give you our best, thoughts moving forward. James will come out on TikTok and post the injury updates on Sunday morning before the game. So if you guys aren't following on TikTok, maybe we'll post them on Facebook and stuff as well. We'll get to see that here shortly. If we do that or not. But injuries, James, you want me to go over Pittsburgh?
Yeah, you can handle the Steelers, and I'll jump over to the Cowboys side of it.
Okay, so last week we saw an influx of non-injury related resting for the Pittsburgh Steelers. This week it's only one guy, it's Cam Hayward, and he didn't participate on Thursday. More than likely going to be a full practice today on Friday, and he will play. Other guys listed with injuries right now: Russell Wilson with the calf, limited Wednesday, Thursday, probably going to be limited today. Don't expect him to go. Jalen Warren with a knee injury didn't participate the first 2 days of the week. I don't expect him to participate today. He will be listed as inactive again. Jeremiah Moon with that ankle injury, full practice both these first days back. So that's phenomenal. It's not like he came back from that 21-day window and was limited. He's full practice, full participation so far. Nick Herbig with his ankle injury did not participate on Wednesday, limited yesterday. I'm hoping he's a full practice today and a go. I don't know if that's solidified. I think that they may take it safe with him and have him sit out this week. Alex Highsmith with the groin injury didn't participate so far this week. I don't expect him to participate today. He probably will be listed as one of the inactives. Isaac Siamalu, for some reason, is listed here. Oh, because he's come back. Excuse me. Pectoral. Full practice Wednesday, Thursday. Expecting to go potentially this week. This could be the first game back, so we're excited for that. Tight end Michael Pruitt, knee injury, didn't participate the first 2 days of the week. I don't expect him to play. Whether he's a limited participation, well, he has to be full participation to go anyways. And then Cordero Patterson, or as a good friend of the podcast, Noah Wagers, likes to call him, Quarter Pounder Patterson, with an ankle injury as well. Didn't participate all week, probably not going to play. Keanu Benton, the defensive lineman, ankle injury, limited on Wednesday, full participation on Thursday. I do expect him to be a go, personally. And then the last one is Larry Ogunjobi injured his groin in yesterday's practice. So we don't know what's going to happen there. More than likely not going to play. That's my thought on this. But we'll see what happens with today's practice and with the injury updates.
Yeah, so my big takeaways from this, it's going to be really important to see whether or not Larry Ogunjobi is limited or practices at all on Friday. Groins are a tricky injury, right? Sometimes guys are able to play through them and it's not so bad. Sometimes you look like a completely different player like Cam Hayward did last season. So let's hope for the best case scenario and not a severe injury to Larry. Not that I think he's like a dominant player for Pittsburgh. He's not making a huge impact on the stat lines, but he has been somebody who's been contributing to getting pressure on the quarterback and forcing some bad throws early on in the season.
Yep.
So regardless of whether he's the guy getting the sacks, we do need the pressure that he does contribute. Also, I'm a little bit concerned on the defensive line in general. We see all three starters showing up on his injury list. Thank God Cam Hayward is just a rest and not an actual injury showing up there. Real worried about that outside linebacker position too. If Herbig misses, then you're looking at starting DeMarvin Leal and throwing practice squad guys out there as your primary backups. That's a real bad situation that you don't want to get into. So let's hope that at least Nick Herbig is able to go, because if he isn't, I personally think that this injury to Highsmith is bad enough that we're going to miss him at least a few more weeks, if not until the bye. So hopefully we get him back earlier than that. On to the Dallas Cowboys side of things. They've got a pretty long list here of injuries, starting with safety Marquise Bell. He's got an ankle injury, practiced full both Wednesday and Thursday. Expect him to go. Cornerback Kalen Carson has a shoulder injury, was limited both days. So Friday is going to be a big thing for him. If he was able to participate today fully, then he'll go. Next on their list, Brandon Cooks with a knee has already been ruled out for this Sunday's game. So that's their number 2 wide receiver behind CeeDee Lamb. That's a very important thing for Pittsburgh. So he will miss the game. Got 3 guys next on the list that are just rest days. Safety Malik Hooker, Eric Kendricks, the linebacker, and then cornerback Jordan Lewis. All of them just rest days. Also Zach Martin, rest day, no injury there. Moving on to Micah Parsons. He has also been ruled out with an ankle injury. In addition to Micah Parsons, you're not going to see him on this list here. DeMarcus Lawrence already on the injured reserve for the Dallas Cowboys. So both their starting defensive ends are out for this Sunday's game versus Pittsburgh. That's excellent for us, especially if you're trying to run any tosses outside or worried about that pressure from the blind side or somebody get in there fast. That really negatively impacts their ability to do so. Cornerback Trayvon Diggs has an ankle injury, is limited in practice. Important to see what he does Friday. I expect him to go, though. Running back Rico Dowdle has a wrist injury, but was full practice. He will go for sure. You got a couple guys that were dehydrated, Ezekiel Elliott and Flournoy. I don't expect that to affect them. And then tackle Tyler Guyton has a shoulder injury, but was a full participant in practice.
Yep. So that's going to finish up going over the injuries. We are going to take a look a peek over at the Cowboys roster and break that down. I will go over the offensive side of the ball, and James will go over the defensive side of the ball. So starting off with the offense, looking at this talented yet awkwardly stagnant Dallas Cowboys offensive line. You got Dak Prescott, the starting quarterback, backed up by Cooper Rush and Trey Lance. Crazy that Trey Lance is now a third string quarterback. Running back Ezekiel Elliott, backed up by Rico Dowdle. Hunter Lupke, who's actually a fullback, but he's listed here as a running back, and that's fine. And then you look at the wide receiver room. You got CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Cooks again. CeeDee Lamb, one of them dealing with that injury. It was Cooks dealing with the injury.
Cooks is out, yes.
Yeah. Jalen Brooks and Ryan Flournoy backing him up. Flournoy also listed on that injury list. Again, don't expect that to be an actual issue. Jalen Tolbert is listed as the third wide receiver in that group, and then he's backed up by Kevontae Turpin. So those guys are very talented. Again, the fact that Brandon Cooks is not going to be playing is very helpful to us. Tight end room is very talented. They got Jake Ferguson and Luke Schoonemaker. Those are their starting two tight ends. And then that offensive front, that's always been a big deal in Dallas. You have Tyler Guyton as that left tackle. Again, he's on the injury list. Left guard Tyler Smith, center Cooper Beebe, right guard Zach Martin, and right tackle Terrence Steele. That offensive line is very capable. They're a little bit lesser quality out of their play than what I think we're used to seeing out of Dallas's offensive line. But they're still a very capable group, and I'm excited to see TJ go up against Terrence Steele. I'm very excited against that.
Yeah, I like the matchup here for TJ. I think there's a better chance of him seeing more one-on-one with this unit.
Yep.
Because Jake Ferguson, Luke Schoonemaker, not known for being big punishing blockers. They're more receiving tight ends.
They'll chip.
They'll probably chip him, but they're not going to stick in there for a double team. So I would expect that to be a little bit easier path for TJ this week, I would think anyway. Also, with the number 2 wide receiver injured for them, that's kind of a bigger drop-off in talent from CeeDee Lamb down to who will be the number 2 now, which is likely Jalen Tolbert. So I think that's a good opportunity for Pittsburgh to be able to focus a little bit more on stopping or at least trying to slow down CeeDee Lamb, because he is an incredibly talented wide receiver. Most people would put him in their top 5 rooms right now with the way he's playing football. So interesting to see how this will play out. But let's go to the defensive side of things for the Dallas Cowboys. The defensive ends, DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons, as we indicated, are both out for this game. So we'll be going against their backups, which are Chauncey Golston and Marshawn Nealand. So that's who you're looking at as the defensive ends. On the interior, Mazi Smith and Osa Odigizua. That's right. I know how to say Odigizua.
Odigizua.
What a fun name that is. Their backups, Jordan Phillips and Marshawn Nealand. You never know. They might play at edge since they're so thin on the defensive end part of things. So might be one of those things that if the starters are out, like I said before, getting some toss, some sweep stuff, maybe even some misdirection where you get them going one way and then come back the other way, might be very effective against these defensive ends that are less talented than the starters, because those starters are very good. Again, both out due to injury, will not play in this week's game. The linebacker room, Marist Liafu, Eric Kendricks, and Damone Clark. Those are the 3 starters. The backups being DeMarvin Overshown and Buddy Johnson, if that name sounds familiar, former 4th round pick of the Pittsburgh Steelers, 4th or 5th, one of those.
He was somewhere in between there.
I think he was a 4th, which is why I was so disappointed he was off the team.
Yeah, it didn't turn out to anything.
After they drafted him,
he had listen, his tape was very promising. I just don't know if we didn't give him enough playtime, or I don't know what it was. I still feel, he's obviously on an NFL 53-man roster, so there's that. And especially when you process our interior linebackers got very deep for a minute, and then it just crumbled. I'm sure that if he was on the team last year, he would have probably been up there with one of the top guys. Yeah, easily.
He would have played.
So,
and part of that makes you wonder is the playing for Dallas now, because there's guys there that saw a lot of his college tape, because I believe he went to the University of Texas. So they're going to be a little bit more familiar with more of his college tape and maybe a little more willing to let him sit around on the back of the roster to try to prove that he's someone who could be starter capable down the road.
Yeah.
But neat to see an old Steeler on an opposing team. Getting into the secondary, the starting corners, we've got Trayvon Diggs, who's very boom or bust, kind of a heavy interception or heavy pick six, depending on what he does. Also gets burned a lot deep. So that's a guy you want to test deep, but not necessarily short. The other two corners, Kalen Carson and Jordan Lewis. I think Jordan Lewis was on the injured list there. So this room just in general, a little bit banged up. Some of the backups might get some playing time, CJ Goodwin, Andrew. So take a look for both of them as well. Now the safeties, Donovan Wilson and Malik Hooker. That's your starting safety room for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, it's a good crew. The secondary is a very good secondary, so I'm excited to see. I mean, Trayvon Diggs is more than likely, or excuse me, not Trayvon Diggs. Who's probably going to be guarding George? Yeah,
it'll be Diggs for sure, man.
You think he's going to follow him? You think he's going to track him?
If I were them, I would, because he's their most. He's your tallest, fastest dude. That's. I wouldn't trust the other two guys.
Yeah, I'm not sure. We'll see what happens. I'm excited for George to go. I mean, George took on, who was it the other week? And Patrick Surtain, and made Patrick Surtain look funny. Obviously, Patrick Surtain had some calls that were lucky because some of the big plays that he was able to do in that game got called back. But excited to see what George Pickens can do against Trayvon Diggs. Also looking at the special teams, Brandon Aubrey is the kicker. Very good kicker. We talked about that. Brian Anger is the punter. Hopefully we get him angry and block his punt. Long snapper Trent Slegg, and then the holders also obviously Brian Anger. So there's that. And then kick and punt return. The starters both listed as Cavante Turpin for both those positions, and then the backup kick return is Rico Dowdle, and then the backup punt returner is Deuce Vaughn. So that is the special teams for those Dallas Cowboys. Anyways, James, it is now time for 3 keys to success in this game.
It is.
It's my week to go first.
It is your week to go first, buddy.
It is my week to go first. So I'm going to start this off. It's going to be offensive side of the ball, and it's going to be an interesting one, James, because it's going to be a very simple one to track. And I'm doing this more for situational things and more for the team as a whole moving forward. I want there to be no muffed or fumbled snaps this game from Justin Fields. It seems very minimal. We've had like 1 or 2 a few of the games, and last week was only really 1, but it came at a very, very pivotal moment, and it arguably, cost us a drive. And so with that being said, that is my first key to success. Eliminate those fumbles, those muff snaps, and give Justin a chance to really go on offense. Number 2 is going to be pass the ball downfield early and often. I want to see Justin Fields take control of this offense. He's already come out and said that he's limited with what he can do at the offensive line. If there's a run play, he can't audible to a pass play most times. They're going to run it because that's the play. I want them to stop putting handcuffs on what the offense can do. I feel like a lot of that is coming down from Mike Tomlin. I don't think that's an Arthur Smith thing. And if it is, that's fine. No matter who it is, I want them to stop it. I want them to let Justin Fields play. He's very, very athletic and capable of doing many, many things. So I'm excited to see what he can do when he's given full potential. And the last thing, James, I'm going to the defensive side of the ball. I want to see us get a sack in the first quarter. I don't care the total number in the game. I don't care who gets the sacks. I don't care where it comes from. It could come from Beanie Bishop. I don't care. I want to hit and sack Dak Prescott in the first quarter, because I think that once we can hit an opposing quarterback, and actually have it apply for a sack, that gets in their head. They start feeling the pressure all game long. I'm tired of us getting the first sack in the second half. I want to see us get one early and often. Sack in the first quarter is my third key to success.
I like it, Cody. All 3 of those are very good in my opinion. So I think that'll give Pittsburgh a very good chance. Now, I went way different, really, on all three, which is a little bit, a little stroke of luck. That doesn't always happen. My first key to success for Pittsburgh is stop CD. I think you need to put Joey Porter on CD Lamb, and you might need to double team him every now and then, especially on like third and long situations, and take CD Lamb out of this game. Make them beat you with those other wide receivers. Make them beat you with the tight ends, which these are pretty good tight ends. So you're going to want to keep an eye on that. Make sure these middle linebackers are doing a good job on this game. But that is my number one key with is extremely explosive as CD Lamb can be. You got to make sure he's accounted for on all downs. Number two, I want to see 4+ sacks on Zach. I think this offensive line is not the most talented one that we've gone against. And I think it is time for TJ to have that big game. I think that's coming. And I think the entire defensive line, it's all starting to come together. We're getting that pressure up the arc. The defensive linemen are starting to register some sacks because of it. Well, this is the game where I think they put it all together and get your 4+ total sacks. And then the last key to success for me is a TJ takeover. I want to see TJ Watt completely take over this game on the defensive side, just wreaking havoc on Zach Prescott's just self-esteem really in this game, destroying the running game. And I want to see 2+ sacks out of TJ. I think he is fully capable of doing it. And I think we're going to see that this week. I think TJ is going to start getting people talking again about him.
Heck yeah. I like it. I like it, James. Now it's time for score predictions before we talk about a couple other things that I want to talk about before we go. Score predictions. James, you want me to go first or you?
Go ahead.
My score prediction for this game is going to be Pittsburgh 27, Dallas 24. That's right. Same score from last week. We just actually get the win. I do think Pittsburgh's still going to struggle on the defensive side of the ball. I don't know why. I think we're going to be confused a little bit on some coverage things. The secondary is still young. They're new. They're learning things. We obviously just got rid of Elliott, and so we also got rid of Darius Rush. We got rid of both of them. And so I'm curious how that's going to affect the defense. So we'll see what's going to happen. I'm excited to see it, but 27-24 is my score prediction.
I'm going big. I think lots of points this week. 31-28 is where I'm going with Pittsburgh coming away with a win, which honestly, I'll be ecstatic if Pittsburgh comes away with 31 points in a game. We haven't seen that yet this season, and it's been a while last season since we saw it as well.
Yep.
So 31-28, I think lots of points, lots of passing in this game. Both teams ought to be able to pass the ball quite well.
Yeah. So James, real quick before we end the show, we're going to play a quick little game called Buy or Sell. Buy or sell that with a solid game from Justin Fields, no turnovers that are his fault, stuff like that, and a victory on Sunday Night Football. Will that solidify his role as a starter? I'm going to let you start because I already know where I'm going.
I'm going to say buy, but I do think that the fan base will be fickle on this. And because of it, the pressure will be on Tomlin if Justin Fields trips up down the road. So in my opinion, if Fields puts another big game together, like you're saying, no turnovers, they win, puts up let's say 220 yards and another passing TD. I think that's enough for him to remain the starting quarterback. That being said, all it takes is 2 losses in a row and a couple of turnovers in each of those. And the whole fan base will turn against him and want to see Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
That's my biggest concern. But for me, and I think for Mike Tomlin as well, he's seen enough from Justin Fields in these games to continue going with him. And I think it'll be a similar approach to how last season was with Mason Rudolph. They're not going to bench him until he doesn't look good anymore. And at least it's regular season. So you don't have to worry about that being, now we lost and the season's over because it's the postseason. We're in the regular season, so a loss is not the end of the world. You have a little, but Justin's playing pretty dang good right now, so I say roll with him.
Yep. Yeah, I'm going to be right there with you. I think that Pittsburgh has to stay with the hot hand here. Again, he's only had one turnover at this point, and you don't want to classify it as his fault. It was an interception. It got beat up and batted around like 3 or 4 times before finally the defender came up with the pick. So again, I think if he plays a good game, anything over 200 yards passing, a rushing touchdown, passing touchdown, however you look at it, and he gets that victory, and he's not the cause of something, going haywire, pick six, whatever. I think you got to stick with the hot hand, and I think he's doing very well. I think it'll be hard for. I think the more interesting thing is to see how Russell Wilson handles that, if that were to be the case, and how that transition happens, or technically doesn't happen, from when he's limited in participation to full participant and still not starting. I'm very interested to see how that would play out. But I think we're both there on the buy. We're buying that solidifies his role as the starter. And again, I think you're right. There are some people already calling for Justin Fields to be taken out of the starting role. But again, I've seen people in the mainstream media of sports recently compare his stats to Patrick Mahomes right now, and he's playing better than Patrick Mahomes. I mean,
yeah, it's a slightly misleading stat because the thing that Patrick's getting knocked for right now is the interceptions. But he doesn't have the rushing touchdowns that Justin has, right?
Yep.
So a lot of that comparison is just touchdowns versus interceptions, and not separating passing touchdowns.
That's very true.
Rushing ones.
It's very true.
So yeah, what Justin has, like 4 rushing touchdowns on the year, so
something like that.
2 to 1 touchdown to interception ratio doesn't look quite as impressive as 6 to 1 does. But I get why it's being presented that way. That's favorable for Justin. But in the end, when you're looking at his completion percentage is incredible this season so far. That's one of the highest completion percentages we've ever seen from a quarterback in Pittsburgh. And Ben consistently threw in that upper 60% category. Justin's right up there. So you're not seeing a ton of mistakes. You're seeing a high completion percentage. You're seeing way more. All the things you want to see. So we got to run with them.
Yeah. Yep. And then, James, the last thing I want to talk about is just an interesting fact that I saw posted on Twitter recently. We've obviously talked about the Steelers' injuries to the offensive line. Nate Herbig's now out for season. Troy Fautani is out for season. James Daniels out for season. Dylan Cook on the IR. And then you also have Isaac Seumalo, who's hopefully back this week, but also missed the first 4 weeks thus far. Steelers have yet to start the same combination of offensive line in back-to-back weeks. Yeah, that is crazy. Either, right? And it won't happen this week. Week one was Moore, Anderson, Frazier, Daniels, and Jones. Week 2 was Moore, Anderson, Frazier, Daniels, and Fautanu. Week 3 was Moore, Anderson, Frazier, Daniels, and Jones again. And then week 4 was Moore, McCormick, Frazier, Daniels, Jones. And now it's going to be Moore, McCormick, Frazier, hopefully Seumalo. Do you do Seumalo and then Anderson or McCormick on the other side, and then Jones at the right tackle? It's going to be very interesting to see how this defense or offensive line plays together. You can't develop any kind of chemistry week to week with the way that we've been going with these injuries. So I'm very interested to see what happens here. I'm hoping that they can develop some chemistry this week at practice, and hopefully we get going and rolling on all cylinders. Because again, I do believe that a lot of the struggles we had last week in the running game came from the offensive line just missing people. I don't know if it was just natural whiffing, if they didn't know where to be, if there was something else going on. I don't know. And quite frankly, I don't care. I mean, you're in the NFL, you're paid to block, figure it out. And so hopefully this week we can see a little bit better run game out of Najee Harris, and he can shut up some of those haters. So
yeah, I'm with you. What a devastating year it's been for this offensive line. In addition to that list that you had previously mentioned there, my goodness, so this week, obviously, like we mentioned, doesn't look like it's going to be a lineup we've seen before, with Seumalo likely to start on the left. Reports are that McCormick's been practicing on the right side.
Yep.
In college, he had over 3,300 snaps as a left guard and only like 19 as a right, but apparently is used to practicing on both sides and comfortable with it from what he says. We'll see what that translates to. But the biggest thing that I'm looking forward to is with the return of Isaac Seumalo looking very imminent now, as he's practiced fully both Wednesday and Thursday. It looks like we're finally going to have a high-quality backup offensive line making Cody, because I think this team is very committed to doing some sixth offensive lineman work. And I'm comfortable with Spencer Anderson as that sixth offensive lineman. I think he's good enough that he will make sure he hits his block and he'll be where he's supposed to be. He knows what he's doing. He's a strong, athletic offensive lineman. I'm cool with him being the sixth offensive lineman. If they march Ryan McCollum out there again as that, I swear to God, I'm gonna lose it, brother.
It's gonna be a bad day if that happens again.
Yeah, he's just not a high quality sixth offensive lineman. And then you never know, we might see Dylan Cook come back soon here as well. And if that happens, now you have a backup offensive tackle who you also have a little bit of faith in.
Yeah.
So starting to get a little bit of that depth coming back to the offensive line unit. And couldn't be at a better time. So cross your fingers and hope that we see that 21-day window maybe open for Dylan Cook next week to start getting some depth in the offensive tackle position.
That would be fantastic, James. With that being said, that's going to wrap up today's show. We can't thank you guys enough for listening or watching if you're on YouTube. Don't forget to like and follow on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Subscribe, ring the bell. It's free. It don't cost you a mother trucking thing. And don't forget the 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. Make James over here very, very happy. And until next time, this is your host, James and Cody, signing off.
Peace.